What's up, and welcome into Chicago Bears Now. Happy Monday, everybody. Hopefully everybody enjoyed Championship Sunday. We, of course, had a busy night as well as Ben Johnson settled on his coordinators, hiring Dennis Allen to run his defense. Declan Doyle is his offensive coordinator. Did a full video out on him earlier this morning. Go check that out after today's live show. Plus, we also talked about Richard Hightower being retained. So we had that all covered for you guys. We'll continue to divulge into some of these coaching hires as they come in. And, of course, every other Bears news, rumors item that is out there. Shout out your city. Let us know where you guys are tuning in from. We'll get some shout-outs coming at you here. Appreciate all 150 or so that are tuned in live on a Monday. We've got Jared in Keller, Texas, Wasim in Irvine, California, a depressed Bears fan. I wonder if he'll ever change his name. Erie, Illinois, we got Strap in Lansing, Michigan, Jason in Scotia, New York, Pingree Grove, Illinois. What's up, Ron? Marcus in Dallas. We got Julian in Steger, Illinois. Ron Coker in Bloomington. Lacora under the weather. It's tough, man. Jacob in Charleston. We got John in Antioch, Illinois. Bloomington from Z Ganji. Robert Smith in Chicago. Jack in Beijing. Must have a VPN over there, Jack. Big Wander in Grand Junction, Colorado. Kansas City, Missouri from Josue. Orlando, Florida from Thomas. Got Kyle in Tampa. Appreciate you saying you're taking the under. Is that what you're going for, Lacora? Not sure what you're going for there. Always being tricky in the chat. All right, we got to thank some sponsors here. Appreciate Gametime for rocking and rolling with us here on Chicago Bears Now all season long. If you want to get tickets to the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the big game this season, you can do so. Also, how about Disney on Ice coming to the United Center here in just a few days? You can get in the building for right around $50. That's with all-in pricing, by the way, so go check that out. Plenty of opportunities to get out of the house. Get your tickets for whatever you're going to, sporting event, concert, comedy show, anything else. At Gametime, download the app, create an account, use promo code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off your first purchase only. That's code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase only. Terms do apply. Prize Picks. Shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show as well as, listen, it doesn't get much better than Prize Picks. Daily fantasy made easy. Obviously, you got the one big game left. Other sports available. They're offering an awesome deal for the big one as Patrick Mahomes half a passing yard. Go ahead and lock yourself in on that. Lineups can be as few as 2 players. So you're halfway home to a win if you pair this with something else. All the way up to 6 players. You can win up to 1,000 times your money on certain lineups right now with Prize Picks. Check it out. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS if you're a first-time customer and use that code and link. You'll get $50 sent straight into your account when you play for just $5. Awesome deal to get some extra money to play with. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Code CLNS to take advantage today. All right, a couple super chats. Want to get to Chicago Legend. We need a mock offseason free agency and draft. We'll do that. That sounds like a fun exercise. Maybe Thursday's live show we can do that. Be a fun time. We did a dream offseason, but that was more like coaching influenced as well. So maybe a full mock offseason, more personnel driven, could be a fun exercise, Colin. We could throw that together for the people.
Yeah. No, I mean, it would be I know we've had people multiple in the comments. We've obviously got super chats on it. I mean, I feel like the people want to see it.
Didn't Dennis send us a full
I still have it.
Yeah.
He didn't send us a DM. It was like a whole excerpt.
It was a preamble.
Literally.
Shout out to Dennis and Chicago Legend. We'll work on that. Want to put some more thought into a video like that, but stay tuned. Depressed Bears fan, poor Buffalo. Yeah, I mean, listen, it sucks being stuck with Mahomes in this era, right? I mean, it's like being Phil Mickelson in the Tiger era. At least Phil won 5 times, but yeah, it's tough sledding. I don't know what you do if you're the Bills. I mean, you're not going to fire Sean McDermott, but you just feel like you're at a coaching disadvantage every time you play. But who are you going to get that's not going to be at a coaching disadvantage? I mean, Andy and Spags, you're not going to outcoach them.
No.
You might beat them, but you're not going to outcoach them. So it's a big challenge, man.
It really is. And I think if you're Buffalo, you're essentially, if you keep running it back with this McDermott-Allen combo, again, you can change the parts how you want to, you're essentially hoping somebody else knocks out KC. I mean, when you're 0-4, I mean, you can't even really expect to, win at some point. I mean, I guess if you keep going
it
at
felt
it
like
eventually.
I know everybody's like, yesterday they had their and don't get me wrong, they certainly had a chance. I felt like last year was their real chance because you got them at home. They were down. I mean, they last year was the most vulnerable the Chiefs have been in this era, and they still won the whole thing because they had to go on the road against Buffalo and Baltimore, still beat them both. I think the Bills will be able to add to that defense this year because they had some cap issues. They had to cut some guys, but you wonder too, Colin, next year, like, because Joe Brady's coming back, so that's huge. He's going to be a hot name next year, though. Like, if they were to lose early, I could see a scenario where they would just give the keys to Brady and take their chances. Like, that wouldn't completely shock me. But if you're in the AFC title game, what are you going to do? Fire McDermott? I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
I'm really interested to see how he does as, another coordinator another year because, Ben Johnson went back, and I think he even became a stronger candidate than what he was last year. Obviously, the Bears
For sure.
hired him. That toss play, whenever on the final drive, like, there's just some little,
Just put the ball in Josh's hands.
Just little things that Joe Brady, I feel like, can improve as a play caller. And if he comes out next year, again, assuming Buffalo makes upgrades, at the skill position spots, I mean, who's to say that Buffalo just says, hey, we're going to promote you. We've tried this McDermott thing. We're ready to move on. Because it feels like McDermott, there's like a hard ceiling for what he can accomplish. And again, the defense this year for Buffalo, given the talent, performed really well.
I wonder what their plan at receiver is, because clearly Amari Cooper didn't give them much. I don't think he's coming back. I think he signs elsewhere. I mean, I like Shakir, and, they've got Keon Coleman, some young pieces, Curtis Samuel, but, like, they kind of feel like the Packers at receiver where it's like they have a lot of good pieces, but they don't have, like, that dude. I mean, like, they have two good tight ends, Kincaid and Knox, but, like, neither is dominant. Like, they have a bunch of good players, but no great players on the outside. I do wonder if they take a swing at a player that can be a true number one guy, because I feel like they have a bunch of 2s and 3s. But, came up short again. Depressed Bears fan again. I'll change my name when this team actually proves itself. Fair enough. Hey, I'm with you.
You got to let us know what you change your name to, by the way.
Yeah, you have to say, hey, it's I feel like he'll make it obvious. He'll be like no longer depressed Bears fan.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that's the case for you. I do think brighter times are ahead. I mean, this season, again, Bears fans have been through a lot. I understand that.
I don't think you can go further south than it went this year. That's the good news.
Let's hope not.
It's kind of crazy that the year you beat the Packers finally, it was like easily the most disappointing year in a while. Just based on like expectations of, at worst, being in the mix to make the playoffs late in the season, which you weren't even close to doing. So
all I heard was that we beat the Packers. Speaking
That's
of
true.
which, FGB.
Shout out Wasim, getting the FGBs in the chat. Let's go,
FGBs,
Wasim.
FGBs.
Show Wasim some love with
Should've
the
been sweet
FGBs.
this year.
Oh, man. All right, we got a couple more. The Not Cast. Max available. He seemed miserable at the presser. I didn't get to watch that super close. I know him and Pete were talking afterwards, and that seemed to be a good conversation. But we'll see. I don't think they'd trade him unless he demanded a trade. I'd be surprised if that happened.
I would, too. I think Max seems like a potential Raider for life, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of seemed like this year that maybe his patience was starting to wear thin, but I think he's at least going to give this a go with Pete and see how this year goes. So I don't think they'll trade him, but I do wonder, like, if you're the Raiders, like, it may sound crazy because he's like the one elite player you have other than Brock Bowers now. I would be curious, like, if I'm SpyTech, I at least want to know what Crosby would fetch me. Because, like, there are players, like, several players away, in my opinion. Like, I don't know, if some team would trade you 2 firsts and a second, you're telling me you wouldn't entertain that if you were the Raiders?
You got to also, value where your timeline is and how much value.
So I'm saying, if you're, like, at minimum we're 2 years away, by then Max is 30. 31.
Yeah, and it won't be as valuable.
Like, how old is he right now?
He's late 20s.
Okay, he'll turn 28 in August. So let's say at the earliest, the start of the 2027 season, you have a chance to be a wild card team. So he's 30 that year. I think that's the last year of his current contract too, potentially, or may even be next year. So I don't know. I'd be curious to know what his value is if I was John Spytek.
If they got into a bidding war, I could easily see him going for at least 2 first.
I think you'd get 2 ones. I mean, he's in his prime elite pass rusher. Like,
can you name 5 better pass rushers in the NFL?
I mean, the only ones in the convo are like, I don't know, you've got
Myles Garrett,
TJ Watt, but Watt's getting older. Yeah, I mean, even Garrett's 30 this year, I think. Micah, I think Micah's a better probably pass rusher, but I think Max is a better overall player.
Aiden Hutchinson, if he comes back
if healthy. You know who's up there and doesn't get the love he deserves is Trey Hendrickson.
Yes.
He's a freaking dog. I wonder what the Bengals do with him, by the way. 1 year left, and he's making less than $20 million a year.
I'm not even kidding. Is the second best player on that Bengals defense Logan Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah.
How many Bengals defenders can most average casual NFL fans name?
I mean, it's either Logan Wilson or B.J. Hill.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
2
not
solid
great.
players, but
Yeah.
B.J. Hill's a free agent, by the way. Bears, be an interesting player to target. Wasim, Andy Reid struggled, couldn't win the big one in Philly. Then he got Mahomes in KC. Yeah, I mean, it's a marriage. Although I will say, I mean, he went to 4 NFC championships with Donovan McNabb. He was winning some games with Jeff Garcia, A.J. Feely. Got the best out of Michael Vick. Like, he made it work with a lot of quarterbacks. But, yeah, it just goes to show that when you get the elite one, you'll really find out how good your coach is. And since he's gotten Mahomes, it's been the best 7-year stretch for any team in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, and the coin flip side of that is, I mean, we all agree Allen's, at worst, top 3 quarterback in football. And McDermott still hasn't been able to really break through the glass ceiling, so to speak. And again, he's made an AFC championship game. It's just
2 AFC title games. Yeah. One got blown out. Second one lost yesterday.
Yeah.
And, like, he'd get a job instantly, but
yeah,
I just think you're always going to be somewhat capped with the defensive head coach, which is why I'm glad the Bears went offense this time.
Yeah, because I feel like if you had an offensive mind, there were some calls that Brady had yesterday where he may have, I don't know if he had influence on or maybe he didn't have enough influence on. It felt like a coaching mismatch both first drives of the game. Now, granted, Josh settled down. They were able to fight back and everything, but I just never feel like in a matchup with some of the AFC's best, McDermott's the guy you.
Yeah, we always talk, too, about, like, the final 5 minutes of these games. And obviously those matter. That's when they're close. It's when the most eyeballs are watching all that stuff. But, like, a big part of coaching is, like, the scripted part of the game. Like, what's your point of attack on drive number 1, both offensively and defensively? Well, the Chiefs kicked the Bills' ass on both sides of the ball. Buffalo went 3 and out offensively. Allen almost threw, like, multiple picks on that first drive. And then the Chiefs went straight down the field and scored. And that adds up in a 3-point game. Like, you get a stop and score to start the game, and you're getting the ball to start the second half. Like, that plays a major factor. So, no question about it.
100% if Mahomes was on this team, he would have been gone after year 3, said DC Viper.
I don't know about 100%, but I don't think there's any question that going to Andy Reid, like,
helped.
Was the best thing that could have happened in his career. But
sitting most of his first year, learning behind Alex Smith, like, a lot of pros to go into KC, for sure.
No question. Grade the Bears coaching staff so far. A, B, C, D, or F. What say you? Get some shout-outs. A, B, C, D, or F. Let's hear it. Ron says B. B from Flo.
I think it's somewhere between a B+ and A-.
Yeah, I think the one kind of swing they've taken so far is the Doyle hire because he is so young. But I think it is a calculated one considering he's not going to play. He's not going to play or call plays, excuse me. Ben Johnson was the best, if not one of the 2 best with Mike Vrabel. Head coaching options on paper at least this cycle. You got him. That's got to be considered an A. Dennis Allen, I think, is about as good as you can do for a defensive coordinator. I mean, if you want to say Salah's better, sure, but, like, he got 3 head coaching interviews. He was always going to go back to the Niners if he didn't get a head coaching job. So even if you want to say you got the second best DC, you got him, unless you're going to say Anarumo. Top 3 at worst. Al Harris is one of the best DB coaches in the NFL. The Cowboys were second in the NFL in picks in his time in Dallas. You bring 2 guys over from Detroit who are respected. I'd go like B+, A-. I mean, the Doyle thing is definitely a wild card, but he's not calling plays. So like, unless he's just a disaster in terms of like relationship with Caleb. And I don't think they would hire him if they felt like that would be the case. I mean, this guy's been with Sean Payton for 5 out of his 6 years, worked under Dan Campbell, so there's a connection there. So we'll see. Obviously, there's probably a bit of a leap of faith there on Ben Johnson's side, but he's also a guy who he probably sees a little bit of himself in this guy, like a young guy trying to make it in the coaching business early on who's worked under some credible people early on. So we'll see.
And, I mean, you kind of nailed it in your morning video, which, by the way, if you haven't checked it out, make sure you watch it after this live stream. I mean, he needs a guy that's willing to do the dirty work and put the hours in. Like, I mean, as an OC, like, he's completely changing his responsibilities going from the offensive coordinator in Detroit to being the head coach in Chicago. So there's just some stuff that he's not going to be able to handle on a weekly basis like he used to be able to on the offensive side of the ball. And, hiring a young guy that, again, you trust it's smart, you trust its attention to detail and everything, it takes a lot of pressure off of Ben Johnson's plate because it's like, okay, you know what? For the most part, like, I understand how I want to run my offense. I understand the big picture stuff, but there might be some little things here that, Declan can help me out with. And I think he, like you said, he's got the trust of not only Dan Campbell, but Sean Payton. That just seemed to be enough for Ben Johnson to kind of pull the trigger.
Well, I think the interesting thing here, too, Colin, is given his age, if he's a guy you like to work with, you'll probably have him for at least a couple years. Whereas if you hire an experienced guy, maybe someone who has called plays before, whatever the case may be, if the Bears have an awesome year next year, well, at minimum, that guy probably gets a play calling gig somewhere the next year. You probably have this guy for at least 2 years. Now, the flip side is if it's a disaster, you'd have to get someone else potentially. But I just think the risk is mitigated when the head coach is calling the plays, and he has 2 other staffers from Detroit that have come with him that he's surrounded himself with on the offensive side of the ball. Like, again, if the worst case scenario happened, you have these other guys in place that could take on more of the duty. So, is there risk? Yes. Is it potential catastrophic risk? I don't really think so, because I think you have other staff members in place that can help mitigate that risk.
100%. And I think one person that should be really happy about this hire is Cole Kmet. I mean, again, has a tight end background coming over. I mean, Ben Johnson valued, obviously, Sam Laporta in Detroit. But now having 2 guys, again, with tight end sort of semi-backgrounds, or at least somewhat focus of it, I mean, Cole Kmet, plain and simple, was not used enough last year. I think, depending on if they bring Keenan Allen back or not, Cole Kmet, regardless, should be featured more in this offense.
Yep.
And I think, he could become a really valuable asset to Caleb Williams, especially when it comes to, third and medium, or just, having to fit it in a tight window, because I mean, right now, he's probably your best big body target that they have on the roster.
No question.
I think Cole Kmet should be happy about this, and for his sake, I hope that this means a bigger and brighter 2025 than it was for 24 for Kmet.
Yeah, I think so. All right, who you guys got winning the Super Bowl? KC for the Chiefs, PHI for the Eagles. And by the way, I'm going to spam the chat with a link. I told y'all a couple weeks ago we were launching a Packers channel here on YouTube. I just put a link in that chat. Go spam that Packers video with some FGB comments. Our guy Joey Peterson at Chat Sports is starting that channel up, and we want him and the Packers fans to be heard by Bears fans. So link is in the chat. Go spam FGB in there, and let your presence be felt. Let your presence be felt.
Yeah, we have to set the tone here, man. We've got a 115,000 point lead, but that doesn't mean you can't let up. Let them know too. Remind them of the final score from Week 18.
Yeah, drop that as well.
If you want to spam that in the chat.
There you go.
We've got don't bet against KC. That's where I'm at, Harry. KC feels inevitable at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna have for you 4 Verts truthers. I'm gonna have a preview video up here in probably a couple hours or so. I'm going to film it after our live show here. I just – could the Eagles win this game? Absolutely. They almost beat them 2 years ago. But I think you'd be insane to bet against the Chiefs at this point. They just, if it's close late, it's like 90-10. Like most people would say, oh, if it's close in the last whatever, it's 50-50. No, it's like 90-10 in favor of the Chiefs. So I think if you're the Eagles, you got to jump on them early. But even then, how many times has Mahomes and the Chiefs erased a double-digit deficit in the playoffs? They were down. It's kind of funny. This whole run, in a lot of ways, I know it was his second playoff year, but it was the first year where they won the Super Bowl, was that Texans game where they were down 24-0.
Yep.
It's like ever since he led that comeback, you just felt like they were never going to lose. And obviously they've lost a couple times, but like, the guy is 17-3 in the playoffs. In 2 of those games, he lost in overtime in the AFC Championship game. Yeah,
he's never had a worse finish as a starter than overtime loss in the AFC Championship.
It's historic, man.
It really is. I mean, it's unprecedented. And look, if I'm the Eagles, Saquon Barkley has been an absolute revelation. If he had actually played in Week 18, could have broken the all-time rushing yards.
He's got to get 30 touches if I'm Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni.
Empty the tank.
Yep.
Empty the tank.
He had 15 carries yesterday. I mean, he's got an extra week off here. Like you gotta get that guy the ball early and often. So we'll see. Starter YT, thoughts on Quinshon Judkins, Gibbs 2.0. I think there is some skill set overlap there. Judkins is decently built as well, just like Gibbs is. I'm curious to see what he measures in at the Combine, plus how he tests. Not sure yet if I'll be at the Combine this year or not. Going to try to go. But I'll say this, Colin. This running back class, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
I think it's – look, we all love Ashton Genty. If the Bears end up with him, I hope he's the best back in the league. But I think the second through fourth round, and second and third in particular, the amount of quality backs you're going to see go off the board, I think is going to be a lot. Yeah,
I mean, again, just after Ashton Genty, you have Caleb Johnson, you have Amarian Hampton, you have Travion Henderson, you have Quinshon Judkins, you have Cam Scadaboo. I mean, there's so many running backs that, again, later rounds, like, that can contribute to a team day one.
Devin Neal, R.J. Harvey, Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon at the Senior Bowl today measured in at 6'1", 230. He's a tank. Yeah. There are just some dudes in this draft. So I'm excited. A good amount of them at the Senior Bowl too. So keep an eye on that. We'll probably do some kind of Senior Bowl video later in the week or early next week after the game, but should be fun. Jamie, sign Najee, draft edge, not draft running back, and sign edge. I just think the value for running back is in this draft. Like, I hear what you're saying philosophically. Another reason I don't want to sign a running back, though, like Najee Harris on the low end is going to be $7-8 million per year. You're already paying Swift $8 million per year. So you want to allocate $15 to $16 million for DeAndre Swift and Najee Harris? I'd rather draft someone who's probably has more upside than Najee, and he makes like $1-2 million, and you have him on a 4-year contract. So, sure, like ideally you wouldn't spend a pick on a back, but I think in this draft we've seen it. We've seen it this year. Like the running back position is back. If there's one that you like enough, take one. Detroit's a great example. They got shit on for taking Jahmyr Gibbs. Yep. I would say that was a worthwhile pick.
Yeah. I mean, look at the offseason, right? The Ravens signing Derrick Henry. The Packers signing Josh Jacobs, FGB, in the comments.
And Najee is not that.
No,
like, he's not as good as those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Saquon Barkley literally with the Eagles. I mean,
if there was a Saquon Henry type of back in free agency, I'd be all over it, but I don't see it.
Najee's not that level of running back. And again, respect to Najee. I mean, he's rushed for 1,000 yards, but he's not those level.
No. Nope. All right. Love the Bears. Hit that like button. We got almost 600 people watching live here on YouTube. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We will continue to answer your questions. Only 77 likes. Need a lot more likes, so hit that thumbs up icon because we got a busy show coming up, including the latest Bears news and rumors. Keep firing in your questions, #Bears or Super Chat to get your questions answered here on the show. And we're going to take a look at some defensive free agent targets under new defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. 5 players connected to DA, plus a couple of honorable mentions from the Saints as well. So we'll dive into that. I do want to make it clear these aren't the only players they'll target for defense under Dennis Allen, but guys that he's connected to that I think could fit the bill. So stay tuned for that. My name is Harrison Graham. Busy show ahead here on Chicago Bears Now. I'm Harrison Graham. Here's what's on the docket for today's episode of Chicago Bears Now. Is a favorite emerging for the Bears offensive line coach? We'll dive into that. Also, the Bears have been linked to this defensive lineman. Who could that be? And some ex-Bears staffers landing in new places. Want to get you caught up on that news as well, as it is a busy Monday in the NFL. Thank you guys so much. We crossed 115,000 subs over the weekend. We're almost halfway to 116,000. Hit that sub button. Turn on notifications. We got you guys covered. During the AFC Championship game, we broke down the Dennis Allen, Declan Doyle, Richard Hightower news. So keep rocking and rolling with us, and we will continue to pump out content for free. Okay, is this man right here going to be the next offensive line coach? I'm talking about Dan Ruchar, as he is the current offensive line coach for the Tulane Green Wave. And you're probably saying, Harrison, Tulane's offensive line coach? Well, this guy's been around the block. Look at his coaching history. He was coaching the Butler Bulldogs in the 1980s, of all places, where he had several titles, including the OC and O-line coach at one point. He was the Rhode Island offensive line coach, Ball State OC and quarterbacks, Illinois quarterbacks, tight ends, local ties there with NIU as well, where he coached the offensive line. He was the OC and the quarterbacks coach at one point. Back to Illinois, coaching the running backs and offensive coordinator. Cincinnati's offensive line coach. Michigan State O-line, OC, tight ends. Saints running backs, tight ends, and offensive line. And then the Tulane offensive line coach currently as well. He's been coaching for 39 years, both collegiately and in the NFL. 20 of those 39 has been spent as an offensive line coach. And once again, you look at that Saints tenure, you've got the Sean Payton and Dan Campbell connection. What did we talk about this morning with Declan Doyle? He's worked under Sean Payton and Dan Campbell. Like, there seems to be some connections here that Ben Johnson is leaning on when it comes to these staff hires as he's building out his coaching staff. Now, there are two other names I want you guys to keep in mind when it comes to this opening, to this offensive line coach. Joe Philbin, longtime O-line coach, had a head coaching opportunity with the Dolphins several years ago. Didn't work out, but considered one of the best O-line coaches. He was with the Raiders this past year, and with Pete Carroll there now, we'll see if he's retained or not. Mike Munchak, same deal. Titans O-line coach for a while. They made him their head coach after like 15 years. Didn't work out. He was, I think, just like a consultant for the Rams this past year. All three of these guys in their 60s. So you're talking about seasoned, experienced offensive line coaches. And I think it's pretty clear this is by far the most important hire left. You've got your coordinators in place. Ben Johnson's got a couple of his guys from Detroit on board when you're talking about JT Barrett and Antwaan Randle. Getting the offensive line coach hire is critical because the guys you have so far, I feel pretty good about. Declan Doyle, obviously a bit of a wild card, 28 years old, but you've got the Sean Payton, Dan Campbell history there as well. We'll see how the rest of the staff is filled out. I think if you nail the offensive line coach, you feel pretty good about your core group of coaches, then obviously you'll continue to fill out from there. But this is easily, in my opinion, based on what we've seen in recent years, the most important hire left. You've got to get a badass offensive line coach on this coaching staff. And quite frankly, I think if you get any of these three guys with their experience, I'd feel pretty good about it. Grade the Bears coaching staff so far. You can use pluses and minuses as well. A, B, C, D, or F. How do you feel overall? I'm in that B+, A-. I feel great about the head coach, great about the defensive coordinator. That's going to carry more weight than anything else. OC and Doyle, non-play caller, so lower leverage, but still an important one. It's a risk at 28, but there is precedent. We talked about that in our morning video on Monday. Go check that out. And I like all the other assistant hires with Al Harris, JT Barrett, and Antwaan Randle. A, B, C, D, or F, grade the hires so far. Okay, coming up, the Bears have been linked to this free agent pass rusher. Could the Bears end up signing this player? We will dive into that here in just a moment. But first, do want to tell you guys about our friends over at Gametime, the best place to get tickets for a sporting event, concert, comedy show, or anything else that requires digital tickets is Gametime. Download the app today. Use our promo code at ChatSports to get $20 off your first purchase only. Terms apply when you create an account. It's going to get you $20 off your first purchase only. Whether you're going to a concert, a comedy show, sporting event, hell, Disney on Ice is in Chicago this week on January 30th. Perfect place to take your kids if you have any kids out there and get into the lower level for $50 right now, which is an absolutely fantastic deal. Get your tickets today. And by the way, last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. If you wait closer and closer to Thursday, might even get a better price. Would encourage you to do that. Use their feature Gametime Picks, which will filter out the fluff of thousands of tickets. Narrow down your search, and you'll be able to find something within your price range and budget. Views from the seats, last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Tons of benefits to buying your tickets with Gametime. So what are you waiting for? Like I said, download the app. Use the code ChatSports, $20 off. First purchase only. Terms apply. Link is in the comments and in the description to download the Gametime app today. Code ChatSports, $20 off. Okay, Malcolm Koonce is the free agent that PFF has linked to the Chicago Bears, the defensive end with Las Vegas, who did miss all of this past season. So that is noteworthy. Had a season-ending knee injury in August, didn't play, which was pretty brutal for Vegas and for Koonce especially. Contract year, coming off a career year in 2023 when he had 8 sacks and really finished that year strong. Only had 2 sacks in his first 2 years. So you're kind of talking about a guy in 4 seasons. He's missed 1 full year, has had 1 really good year in 2 years where he didn't really do much. So that is noteworthy when you kind of look at the full evaluation here. Obviously, when you look at the Bears' defensive line here, you've got to beef it up a little bit, right? I expect Montez Sweat to bounce back. He's the type of defensive end Dennis Allen likes: big, strong, lengthy guy, defensive end. So I think that'll be a good fit. Javon Dexter has good traits as well. I think Allen will like that. Billings getting him back and healthy will be huge also. But you need more. You need more depth. Ideally, you get a better starter than DeMarcus Walker opposite of Montez Sweat. Now, here's where I pause a little bit. PFF is projecting that Malcolm Koonce will get 2 years, $37.5 million, $18.75 million per year with $20 million guaranteed. Now, it's basically just a 1+1, so it's not like the end-all be-all, but almost $20 million per year for a guy coming off an injury, for a guy who's kind of a one-hit wonder. He's also listed at 6'2", 250. Is that a fit for Dennis Allen? I'm not sure. Feels a little pricey. It feels a little pricey for Malcolm Koonce coming off an injury. And look, these are just projections from PFF. I like the player. If it was a smaller number, I certainly would be interested. But I guess I'll just ask you guys, would you give Malcolm Koonce $18 million a year on a multi-year deal? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I think I'd have to type my in for no. I think I'd rather go in a different direction here. But what say you? Give us your thoughts in the comments section. Okay. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications as we continue to bring you coverage here on Chicago Bears. Now, couple of coaching notes. Matt Eberflus, sounds like this could be done any second. Might even be done by the time some of you guys are watching this, as plenty of reports that ignore the text on screen, by the way. Plenty of reports that Eberflus is going to be the next defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. He's interviewing on Monday for that position, and it was reported like 3 days ago when it was announced that Brian Schottenheimer was going to be their head coach, that Flus is basically the guy. So stay on top of that. He's probably going to bring some assistants too. A couple other guys interviewed for the DC gig as well, including Andre Curtis. Thomas Brown has landed in New England. He is their pass game coordinator and tight ends coach. So we'll continue to kind of monitor guys who are leaving as well and see where they end up. But pretty clear that other than Richard Hightower, I don't really expect many, if any, more coaches to be retained on this coaching staff. But it is kind of funny that the Cowboys are going to roll with a Brian Schottenheimer, Matt Eberflus combo. I think Flus will be fine as the DC there, but it's just it's very, very interesting. And I wish Thomas Brown well in New England. Be interesting to see how big his role is on that Drake May offensive coaching staff. Okay, that'll do it for this episode of Chicago Bears Now. Again, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. We will continue to plug out content here on a daily basis. My name is Harrison Graham. Shout out to all of you guys for tuning in to Chicago Bears Now. All right, we got Alex here. Wonder if we bring in Chase Young. Stay tuned, Alex. Stay tuned, Alex. Played under Dennis Allen last year. Actually played pretty well. Obviously has played with Montez Sweat before as well. So that's certainly a name to monitor. Maybe, just maybe, Chase Young becomes a Bear after all. So we will certainly monitor that. All right, it is mailbag time. Get your questions in. # Bears or Super Chat to get your questions answered on the show. # Bears or Super Chat to get your questions answered. And we will get as many of those questions answered today. You can ask about free agency, trades, other coaching questions, whatever the case may be. We are going to get those fired in there. Need some more, though, fired in the chat, just like Sean the Savage here. Appreciate your question. Get a few more, and then we will fire away here. Charles in Shreveport. Feel like you need to fast forward your stream, Charles, unless you're just wanting to watch from the beginning. Dune Man saying Khalil Mack, stay tuned. Could be an option. Dennis with the question as well. All right, Miles, we got a few in there. Continue to fire away. # Bears or Super Chat. You can always circle back to some of those other supers if there's any good ones that you think are worthy. All right, here we go. Mailbag time coming up. It's time for a Bears Now mailbag here on the channel. My name is Harrison Graham. We are so back. Asks, could the Bears trade for Micah Parsons? I do think there will be rumors of this around Micah because the Cowboys have already paid Dak. They've already paid CeeDee Lamb. Do they use Micah as kind of capital bait to get multiple first-round picks, which is what I think it would cost? And then I think the big caveat here is it's not just the draft capital. It's this. It's the fact that you'd probably have to pay him $35 million per year. Nick Bosa is the highest paid defensive player in the NFL at $34.5 million. If I'm repping Micah Parsons, I expect to be the highest paid player in the league. Because when you're in that realm and you hit the market, typically if you're within kind of the top level players, you're going to reset the market. I would expect that would be the case here. I think Micah Parsons, who's had a minimum of 12 sacks in all 4 years of his career, including this year when he missed 4 games, he's an absolutely fantastic player. I think Dennis Allen would get a lot out of him. I think he'd be a good player here. It's just, do you want to pay that type of capital and money on the salary cap? It's not cheap. It's definitely not cheap. Now, he's got his 5th-year option, so you can kind of spread it. You could put some of that money this year with the 5th year. That way it gets spread out a little bit more, but it would still cost you a lot. I'll say this, though. A Micah Parsons, Montez Sweat pairing on the defensive line at defensive end, that's pretty stout. That's pretty damn stout. What say you? Would you trade 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons? Type Y for yes. Type in for no. I'll say this. I was reading earlier today, Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, said he's talking to teams that only have 8 to 10 first-round grades on players in this draft. Bears pick 10th. If you feel like that number's 8, 9 players, even 10, like, are you getting a Micah Parsons there? So would you trade 10 in your first next year to do it? The sweet spot's the 2nd and 3rd round this year. You got 2 seconds. You got at least 1 third. You might have a 2nd third if Ian Cunningham gets the Jags GM job. So just something to consider if you're Chicago here. DC Viper, will Ben have a say in players who get drafted or signed in free agency? What players do you think he wants to bring in? I think he will. I think it'll be collaborative, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think Dennis Allen will even have some input when it comes to defense, no question about it. I think Poles is going to, be an active listener in these types of discussions moving forward, as he should be. I think a couple things Ben Johnson's going to want. Obviously, offensive line. I mean, he straight up says, yep, already talked to Ryan. We need to get better there. So I think they're going to invest in the O-line and free agency. And whether it's the draft or free agency, I think he's going to want to add at least one speed guy to the offense. at wide receiver, running back, wherever it is. You need a true burner. Now, does he have a vision for Tyler Scott? I don't know. Even if he does, it seems like a reach to go from not a factor to you're like our number 3 receiver that's going to have a huge role. I don't think that's realistic, but we'll see how he views that. But I think offensive line, speed guy, running back. That's where he's going to want to add on this offense. Sean the Savage, would you consider signing Javonte Williams? I mean, I'm open to it, but what's his role? Like, is he a Roschon replacement? Like, is he just a better Roschon? He's kind of a physical downhill runner. He's had some injuries. He hasn't lived up to his potential in Denver. I don't think he's better than Swift. Like, they're different type of backs, but I don't think it's like a Swift-Williams pairing is that inspiring to me. So, unless you're trying to move on from Roschon, I'm not really sure what a Javonte Williams signing does, unless they're just going to go Swift, clear RB1, Williams RB2, and then Roschon RB3. That's a little underwhelming to me, though. I don't think they'll go that route. Subscribe to the channel because we go live every Monday and Thursday and answer your questions. So be sure to subscribe and join us. Of course, we have plenty of other content as well, covering the latest Bears news, rumors, coaching staff fires, free agency coverage, draft, and a whole lot more. Busy offseason ahead. Be sure to subscribe. Miles, any late 6th to 7th round players you like in particular or think are underrated? Like 6th, 7th round? I mean, it's pretty early in the process for me to talk about like deep sleepers like that. I know there's a kid at the Senior Bowl. I took him in my last mock draft out of Central Arkansas that people like. He's kind of a tweener edge rusher. He could be someone like that. I think his name's David Walker, but I mean, talking about late round sleepers in late January, I'm going to need to study up a little bit more to give you like a fair answer on that. Jacob Jacksa, what do you think about lining up Cole Kmet and the Tush Push next season? 2 years ago, they did it a few times where they would put him in motion, get under center real quick, snap it, fall forward. I could see them doing it some. We'll see what Ben Johnson's philosophies are there in 3rd and 4th and a yard or less. Obviously, Jared Goff, I don't remember him doing a lot of tush pushes, but he's not the most athletic guy either. So not sure how he'll view that. I don't think they did a single one with Caleb Williams this year. So I don't know if that's protecting your number 1 pick, don't want him to get injured, or they don't think he's a good QB sneak quarterback. I don't know, but it's obviously becoming a polarizing topic because Josh Allen struggled to convert on a few of his against the Chiefs. Obviously, it's been a weapon for the Eagles. So, yeah, you see other teams doing it with the tight ends. Chiefs don't do it at all with Mahomes. His kneecap buckled in 2019. They have not run a QB sneak since. So, it's really just team philosophy there. All right, a few more questions to be answered here. But first, do want to shout out our sponsor, Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app in North America is Prize Picks, and the big game is less than 2 weeks away, and it is time to get in on the winnings. There is a tab dedicated to the big game with all types of lineup options available and plays available and stats available. Go check it out. The way you play Prize Picks is simple. You pick 2 or more players, regardless of sport, as long as it's 2 players or more on 2 or more different teams, and you pick more or less based on stat projections available. Well, Prize Picks is giving you a freebie in the big one. Patrick Mahomes, half a passing yard. You're already halfway home to winning a 2-player lineup, or if you want to use that in a 3, 4, 5, or 6-player lineup, you can do that as well. Certain lineups right now can win up to 1,000 times your entry, which is absolutely fantastic. You can turn $10 into $10,000. What are you waiting for? Get started today. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get a $50 bonus when you play for the first time for just $5. So new customers, check that out. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. All right, Eddie Jackson here. What do you think about Deion Walker on day 2? I think someone like Dennis Allen can get him in line. Mark my words, he would be the best offensive tackle in the draft. So he's the kid out of Kentucky, 6'7", 340, measured at the Senior Bowl today. He is massive. He needs a lot of technique work. He does not play with good pad level. But you can't teach that size. You can't teach that power. I have no idea where he's going to go. I feel like he could be early round 2. I feel like he could fall to the 4th. because he does need some work. I don't think he's a day one impactful guy. So we'll see where the Bears kind of slot him in. But the pre-draft process starting this week at the Senior Bowl is going to be very big for him. The Bears. Great commercial. Shout out McConaughey for those who saw it. What's the Bears' floor and ceiling next year? Without saying what moves they make, A, with the rest of their coaching staff, but B and C, free agency and the draft, I'd just be spitballing. But I don't know. I guess last year I said the floor couldn't be lower than 7, and I was wrong. I'd like to say it won't be lower than 5, which is what you got this year. So I guess I'd set the floor at the same, 5-12. Ceiling 12-5. Like, I think we just saw a team like Washington do it. So it's not like it's unheard of. I will set expectations when the time is right, but my expectations are much higher than 5-12. I'll just say that. Who do you guys think is going to win the Super Bowl? KC for the Chiefs, PHI for the Eagles. Rematch of Super Bowl 57 this year and Super Bowl 59. Should be a fascinating one as the Chiefs look to three-peat and the Eagles look to avenge that loss from 2 years ago. Okay, Harley, what are the Bears going to do for center? It's a great question. Drew Dalman and Ryan Kelly, I think, are 2 centers to keep an eye on in free agency. I would not rule out Coleman Shelton as a fallback option. Don't assassinate me, but I would not rule that out because the draft just isn't that good at center. Now, I wonder if the Zabel kid out of North Dakota State, who played mostly tackle in college but has more arm length size for an interior guy, does he get some run at center at the Senior Bowl this week? I'm going to keep an eye on that. But, there's not really great centers in this draft, at least right now on paper. So a couple options in free agency. Wouldn't shock me if it was Coleman Shelton. I'll say this. If it's Coleman Shelton, you need to invest heavily at guard. Dune Man, do you think it would be worth it to sign Zach Baun? He played under Dennis Allen in New Orleans. Yeah, I had that thought, and if you're watching live, we're going to talk about defensive free agent targets for Dennis Allen. I just think the only difference is he wasn't unlocked until he went to Philly. They drafted him to try as kind of a tweener, undersized pass rusher because that's what he did in college. Didn't work out that well. Goes to Philly, off-ball linebacker as a stud. I don't think Zach Baun would re-enter a Dennis Allen defense. And even if he did and you played him at off-ball linebacker, are you cutting Tremaine Edmonds? I'd be open to it because I think Baun's a better player than Tremaine Edmonds, but cutting Tremaine doesn't really save you any money in terms of cap space. So I'd be surprised if this one happened. Plus, that guy's going to get a big payday. I don't think the Bears are in a spot where spending big money on an off-ball linebacker makes a lot of sense. All right, appreciate all the questions. You can ask me more on social media. It's at HGramNFL on Twitter and on Instagram. Be sure to slide in those DMs. They are wide open. And, of course, you can stay on top of our other Bears musings, posts, all that good stuff on social media at HGramNFL. Corey Griffin, did you get the – oh, I meant to message you. I did. It was good. Had some good kick, too. So shout out to you, Corey. Round of applause. Appreciate you sending that our way. I literally was going to message you back, and then something must have come up. I forgot. Appreciate you sending it, and yes, I did get it.
Yeah, it looked good.
Shout out to Corey.
Yeah, shout out to Corey. Here, real quickly. We got a
oh, baby,
reoccurring guest.
His name is
Michael Horowitz.
Boom! He says, coaching staff is coming together. What are some wish list additions, Harrison? We talked about some O-line coaches earlier, including Dan Rushar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He was with the Saints for a while, currently at Tulane. Then also Joe Philbin and who was the other one we talked about? Mike Munchak.
Yeah.
All three of those guys are seasoned vets. They're in their 60s. I think all would be fantastic hires. So I'm focused on the O-line coach right now, Michael. We'll see what the rest of the staff looks like, but I think that's easily the most important hire left is the offensive line coach.
Yeah, I'd agree. Defensive line too, but I mean offensive line takes priority.
Yeah. D-line coach would be big as well. I think A name to monitor for the defensive line coach is Ryan Nielsen. He was with Dennis Allen in New Orleans for a while, and then let me just see where he's been the last couple of years. He was with the Saints from 2017 to 2022, D-line coach most of that time. Got a co-DC title once Dennis Allen became the head coach. Went to the Falcons, became their defensive coordinator in 2023 and D-line coach. And then when they fired that staff, the Jags hired him as their DC. So he's gotten some DC experience now. I think he's more suited as a defensive line coach, and he's been really good at it. So I would expect he would be a name unless the Jags retain him as DC that the Bears would likely hire, because I think Dennis Allen will bring a couple of his guys over here.
Agreed. Louis DePhillips says, I like Nick Nash out of San Jose State. What do you think?
He was a finalist for the Blitnikoff this year. Let me look up his stats.
He was the best.
He had an insane season. He had
best in the country.
6-year college guy. This year he had 104 catches, 1,382 yards, 16 touchdowns. So I'll be curious to see how he tests. He's listed on reference at 6'1", 184. Probably means he's more like 5'11", 6 feet. We'll see how heavy he is. But, yeah, let's see how he tests. And started his college career as a quarterback, by the way. So, you know who that reminds me of? Antwaan Randle, who made the transition to receiver in the NFL. So, could be a day 3 guy. I don't think he'll go first 3 rounds, but he's a little older. But could be an intriguing guy on day 3.
He could be.
Chicago legend. Who wins the division? Get that chat going, FGB. Gosh. Who would you pick today?
Too early. I mean, like, if you're forcing me to pick.
I guess I'd still say Detroit, but I don't think it'd be at 15-2.
No, I honestly wouldn't go Detroit. I think they're going to take a noticeable step back without both these
I mean, are you banking on Love taking a step? I mean, you're not saying – are you saying the Bears over there? Is that where you're going?
Listen,
I don't think it's impossible, but
I think the Bears have a better shot than people want to give credit for.
For sure.
I don't think I'd actually pick them as the favorite. I still would probably lean Green Bay.
I do think you could get some like sneaky betting value.
Yeah, because I think Minnesota had their kind of miracle run this year. They're going to play a tougher schedule.
Them and Detroit are prime regression candidates.
100%.
But they'll still be good, especially Detroit, I think.
Yeah.
But they have coaching questions.
Yeah. And again, it's honestly like if the Bears really attack this draft and attack free agency the way that it should be, you can't tell me that they're at least not in the discussion. Now, again, I'll give it to Green Bay because they finished with a winning record. I think Love, LaFleur, the combination with Jacobs,
they take a step.
Yeah, like I would give him FGB in the comments, but like I said, I would not pick Detroit or Minnesota to win that division. If you force me to bet right now, no chance.
I'll say this: the division this year. 15-2 Lions, 14-3 Vikings. Is it 11-6 Packers, 5-12 Bears? I think 12-5 could win the division next year. I think it'll be equally as competitive, but you're not going to see 14-15 wins. I don't think. Like I
mean, 14-15 is a lot.
That's a lot. 2 teams winning 14 games.
I mean, Dan Quinn in his first year as head coach won 12 with the Commanders.
That's what I'm saying. I think 12 wins could win the division.
It could. So I mean. The Bears are. I don't think that's out of the realm. If they'd have to hit everything, but I mean, getting not only Ben Johnson, but the combination of Dennis Allen, again, assuming Caleb Williams takes that expected jump.
Yep.
If they're able to really win the draft and win the free agency, again, I'm not.
Well, and especially if the defense next year is what we thought it was going to be this year, like if it's a fringe top 5 unit, like if the offense steps into like just middle of the pack in the NFL, like say you have the 15th best offense next year. And the 5th best defense. You're going to be in most games.
I will say, I do think the defense is going to start off somewhat slow next year and then pick up towards the back end. Just when you kind of transition coordinators, I don't expect Dennis Allen and the defense to be firing on all cylinders to start out the gates like they kind of did this year. But, again, Dennis Allen's a really smart defensive mind. I think they'll round into it by the end of the year. So it's just kind of that mix and balance. And, again, who do you get at the beginning of your schedule? And, again, we're not going to project because – projecting on NFL schedules is one of the most pointless things you can do, but
yeah,
schedule
will come out in May though, and we'll have a video, so watch it.
the Bears are in the mix. I'm just going to be honest. I don't see the Lions winning the division next year.
Okay.
That's I guess if that's a hot take.
I don't think it's a hot take. I just think, like, if you ask me today, who has which team on paper is the best, and it's not necessarily an on-paper league, but I still would give that to Detroit because they're going to get most of those defensive guys back. Now, do they bring back Carlton Davis, who was a free agent? Like, corner is a big question mark, but, like, Hutchinson's back. A lot of those linebackers they lost are going to be back.
I mean, you say that, but, I mean, to be honest, Detroit really only needs one corner. Like, Terry and Arnold, you've got as your kind of corner. Branch was really their nickel, more of the kind of back end of their last year.
Joseph was a stud.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're not too far away.
Like if their coaching is 90% of what they got last year and they're just more healthy, I mean, the question I have is, like, is Goff going to maintain this level without Ben Johnson?
No chance. I'm going to be honest.
I would think he dips a little bit.
A little bit. And again, whoever, is going to be kind of calling plays for Detroit next year,
they hired that Broncos pass game coordinator earlier today, which I know nothing about. So,
look, I mean, it's just to me, like, when you lose both your coordinators. I mean, we've seen it with other teams where they just kind of take a step back and everything. I think Detroit's do. They are. And Goff's not a top-level quarterback to where I think he can overcome that kind of level of just dysfunction.
Yeah.
Not dysfunction, but just kind of unsettling.
Change. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Chicago Sports Podcast. Harrison Graham's the GOAT. Appreciate that. Keep inspiring ? Who has the lead on O-line coach or running back? That Rushar, I'm sure I'm butchering his name. I need to look into him more. I think he's the favorite. Any word on Olin Kreutz hat in the ring? I don't think that's going to happen. By the way, as we're live here, Brad Biggs with the tweet. Bears have a small handful of position coaches that were not dismissed and likely are potential candidates to be retained. Interesting. Tight end coach Jim Dre, who I will say Cole Kmet has spoken highly about, so maybe he stays. He was also the one guy other than Chris Morgan who was retained from Luke Getsy's staff to Shane Waldron, so maybe he survives another change here. Defensive line coach Travis Smith, linebacker coach Dave Borgonzi, safety coach Andre Curtis. Would expect them to clarify their situation in the coming days. I would guess with some of the defensive guys, like who follows Flus to Dallas. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I think I asked you that this morning. I mean, it'll be really interesting. He did put in the chat, by the way, he meant to put an exclamation mark. So,
okay.
We got your Chicago Sports Podcast and appreciate the compliment.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the rest of these assistants. Look, I mean, I think for the most part, the defense has been good. I think it just got wonky last year with all the change. But I still would think Dennis Allen's going to bring a few guys. So we'll see what that here we go. Brad Biggs again. New coordinators, Dennis Allen, Declan Doyle will have some input with Coach Ben Johnson on the selection of the remainder of the Bears coaching staff. Those with uncertain futures need to know if they're staying or they need to be looking elsewhere. In other words, this is going to keep moving pretty quickly. Like, I think some assistant coaches are going to be finalized. Like, it wouldn't shock me if by the end of this week this staff is mostly set. So keep us locked in. Turn on noties, subscribe, and we will continue to monitor and give you those updates. Okay, the Notcast. Tyreek wants out of Miami. You say we need a burner. Yeah, he's a $30 million burner.
And an older burner.
Yeah. Listen, Tyreek Hill is one of the best players I've ever seen. I think he's on a short list of he can score from anywhere. He's kind of like Steph Curry in basketball. It's like once he's at midfield, he can, or once Steph's at midcourt, he can score. Once Tyreek has the ball, he can score. But he costs a ton of money. You've already invested at receiver. Like, I more mean like the wide receiver 3, like, don't need to bank on volume, but hit a few home runs over the course of a season. That's why I threw out a guy like a Marquise Brown. Like, not going to cost a ton. Over the course of 17 games, maybe he hits 5 or 6 big plays. You know, he's 500-yard guy for you, something like that. Tyreek Hill's incredible, but the Bears don't need to be investing in that type of contract.
Yeah, you just invested a first-round draft pick in a receiver last draft. You obviously invested.
You've already paid DJ.
More, like,
yeah.
There's just no need to it. Or needs to do it, I should say.
You got to allocate resources elsewhere. TJ, do you think the Bears can go from worst to first? We saw Matt Nagy do it. He won 12 games his first year, so don't think it's impossible. Not going to be easy. Tough division, but don't think it's impossible. Andres, did you see the Liam Cohen press conference? Actual Eberflus vibes with the FAST acronym he came up with, similar to the HIT stuff Flus preached. Look, I'm guilty of overreacting to pressers sometimes, so I'm not going to say it's the end-all, be-all. That was a rough listen, the clips I saw. And Flus was acronym boy here when he got the job. That was rough. Cohen, that just did not seem natural for him. So doesn't mean he's not going to be a good coach. Doesn't mean he is going to be a good coach. But I'll be honest, if that was the presser we got out of Ben Johnson, the vibes would have been snatched. They've been like, we've been waiting for this guy, and this is what you get. That ain't great. So
now, in fairness, Nick Sirianni had one of the worst pressers that I can remember in recent
he
memory.
did.
He's in
Dan Campbell's was ripped too.
Yep.
So it's not the end-all, be-all by any means at all. Jonathan Gannon, remember the early vibes there?
Yep.
He hasn't been great, but, he's been okay in Arizona, so time will tell.
Some people just, they're meant to be football coaches, not press, public speakers. It's just...
It's kind of like, I appreciate Johnson because, he's not, some superstar politician as a speaker, but, he was just, a very, well-spoken guy that you could tell is smart. It wasn't anything otherworldly, but it wasn't, cringe either. So,
yeah. I think, the fact that he exuded confidence. Because sometimes, when you get those coordinators that are very intellectual, they can almost come across as
they feel out of place almost.
Yeah, out of place, just, not comfortable in their own skin, especially in a new profession. Johnson felt like, hey, listen, I'm here. I'm ready to take on this challenge. I didn't take long to make my decision. I'm ready to, get it going. So, yeah, we got one more super here from M. Xavier. Says Doyle got Ditka blood in him. All makes sense now.
So that was a fake tweet going around. Someone put out a tweet saying that, or it was a Google search, Declan Doyle, the nephew of Mike Ditka. That is not a real tweet. But if you can find a bloodline there, that would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Let me check one thing real quick.
No. Just in case any breaking news.
Yeah, the Reddit that got people going on this has been deleted as
interesting.
Yeah, there's no relation there unless we've been double duped. Okay. All right, let's get into our final segment here on today's show. Defensive free agent targets for Dennis Allen. Here we go. With Dennis Allen on board as the Chicago Bears defensive coordinator, we're going to take a look at 5 defensive free agent targets that he has connections to, plus a couple of honorable mentions as well. So that is our show today. My name is Harrison Graham. Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. Help us out as we are trying to get to 116,000 subscribers here on the channel. If you love the Bears, if you want free and daily content, I promise we're the channel for you. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. We are almost already to our next milestone of 116,000. Okay, I know you guys are going to like this one. Khalil Mack. What is his connection to Dennis Allen, you might say? Well, Dennis Allen, people forget this, was the head coach of the Oakland Raiders for 2012-2014. They drafted Khalil Mack in 2014. So his rookie year, he overlapped with Dennis Allen, and here 11 years later, Mack is still playing, and Dennis Allen is the defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears. Obviously, the Bears traded Mack to the Chargers 3 years ago, and he still put 3 good seasons together, especially in 2023 when he was absolutely dominant, played at an all-pro level. Still good this year as well. I wouldn't say he's elite level status anymore. He is going to turn 34 next month, so he's year to year at this point. At the end of the season, he was pondering retirement, but couple weeks ago, it was reported that he is going to play for another year. Look, I'd love to have Khalil Mack back on a 1 to 2 year deal. You could argue he'd instantly be your best pass rusher. Now, Montez Sweat ideally is a better overall player at this point in his career, but put Mack on one side, just focus on being the pass rusher, Mack, and then on the other side, Sweat is the complete stop the run first, but also be a secondary edge rusher. I think that would be a pretty good pairing there. Khalil Mack still got it. He's still very good, and obviously he had a great run here in Chicago, and he's got familiarity with Dennis Allen. Okay, Chase Young. The Chase Young rumors will never die here on Chicago Bears. Now, he played for Dennis Allen this past year and has a couple of connections to the Bears. One being Dennis Allen, but also playing with Montez Sweat in Washington. Remember at the trade deadline last year, it was Chase Young, Chase Young, Chase Young. Then they traded for Montez Sweat instead, which actually worked out very well last year. More up and down this year, was playing through injury. I expect Sweat to bounce back next year. With Dennis Allen this year, he played pretty well. He played in all 17 games, 7th in the NFL in pressures with 66, had 5.5 sacks. Is Chase Young ever going to live up to that number 1 or number 2 pick status? Probably not. But can he be a starting edge rusher on a good defense? I think that's still in him. We saw him play well this year under Allen, so there'd be no learning curve. You plug him in opposite of Sweat. DeMarcus Walker becomes more of a do-it-all backup, both at edge and at defensive tackle. Austin Booker, hopefully you get more out of him. And I don't think Chase Young's going to cost crazy amount. I think he made $12, $13 million last year. Maybe you get him on like a 2 for $25 type of deal, $12.5 million per, something like that. I think you can get him at a reasonable price tag. And if he stays healthy, even though he's had a reputation at times for taking plays off, you get him in here with Dennis Allen, a coach he played under last year. I think it could work. So definitely intrigued. If you had to pick one guy here, who would you rather have? The veteran, the older player in Khalil Mack, type KM, or Chase Young, who's been around for a bit now but is still pretty young, type CY? I think I can trust Khalil Mack more, but Chase Young could potentially be here for multiple years. So it's really just pick your flavor, KM for Mack or CY for Young. Here's an interesting one. Tyrann Mathieu, veteran safety, 32 years old, still a good player. Didn't have his best year this year, but last year he was fantastic for the Saints. Let's face it, we have no idea what Jaquan Brisker's situation is. I expect Kevin Byard to be back and start. I think they hope Brisker plays next year. I think they want him to be the starter on this team. He's a leader. He's a good player when he plays. But I don't think you can bank on him, right? Like, can you bank on Jaquan Brisker being healthy and being a big-time player for you? Guys, he missed the final 12 games of the season last year. That is unheard of for a concussion. It kind of feels like he's one concussion away from maybe he has to call it quits. And, you know, as harsh as it sounds, regardless of if he'd have to retire or not, you got to have contingency plans there. I hope Brisker's healthy. I hope he plays. I hope he's an all-pro. I think he's got that potential. But the reality is he has 3 concussions in the NFL. Tyrann Mathieu is a vet. At worst, he can provide excellent insurance. He can give you snaps at nickel as well. You could move him around. So I'm interested now with Tyrann Mathieu sign up for a role that's like a, hey, you're more of our third safety in case something happens to Brisker, or is he like, nah, I need to have a guaranteed starting role? I don't know. At this stage in his career, that's a fair question to ask, but knows the scheme, leader, has won a Super Bowl, all that stuff. Definitely interested in the Honey Badger. Check out our friends Gametime, the best ticketing app to get your tickets for sporting events, concerts, and comedy shows, and much more is Gametime. And the big game's just around the corner, but you got events every night. You got the Bulls, the Blackhawks, Cubs, and White Sox just around the corner. If you want to go to different type of events, how about Disney on Ice coming to the United Center here very soon on the 30th? You can get into the building for about $50. That's all-in pricing, by the way, lower bowl. So if you got some kids, want to get out of the house, have a good time, go check out Disney on Ice. But plenty of other events regardless of where you live. Concerts, comedy shows, sports, big level events, small level events. They're going to show you views from the seats regardless of the size of the venue. If you're going to a Northwestern basketball game or a Chicago Bulls basketball game, they're going to have you covered. You can get those tickets last minute, literally hours, even minutes before the event starts. A lot of time the prices go down. As you get closer, last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. That is a motto of Gametime. So what are you waiting for? Download the Gametime app today. Use promo code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off your first purchase only. Terms apply. That's code CHATSPORTS with Gametime. Download the app today. Get started, create that account, and use promo code CHATSPORTS. All right, a couple more here. Marcus Davenport, who's bounced around the last few years, was a Saints and Dennis Allen draft pick several years ago in 2018 when Sean Payton, excuse me, losing my voice a little bit here, was still the head coach in New Orleans. And he's kind of the prototype of what Allen likes in his edge rushers, big, long, physical players. And for whatever reason, we've just never really seen him put it all together. He had the 1 9-sack season in 2021, but what's a common theme you see with this? A lot of missed games. Like, first 2 years, missed 3 games. 2020, missed 6 games. 2021, missed 8 games. 2022, missed a couple games. 23, only played 4 games. This year, 2 games with the Lions. Like, the injuries are a real concern, so I'll be honest, I'd only be interested on a super cheap deal. This would have to be like a vet minimum, maybe slightly more. You're going to have to earn a roster spot. But he is talented. He is capable. He does know the system. I just think that compared to some of these other guys, I wouldn't be as interested. Here's a wild card. How about Cam Jordan? Savvy veteran for the Saints. Now, I do want to make note, he is not currently a free agent, at least not yet. Now, there is a lot of buzz. What's New Orleans doing? As we're filming this show, obviously on Monday, they haven't hired a head coach depending on when you're watching, maybe they have. But they are in a cap disaster. They have got to figure out what they're doing with Derek Carr and Cam Jordan. And if they designate him as a post-June 1 cut, every team can do it with 2 players at the start of free agency or before free agency. That would save them $11 million. And that helps their cap situation out. And then he can sign with the team immediately. 36 years old next season, certainly older, not what he once was, but this guy's experience, he still can give you production. I kind of think of him as he could be like a 3-tech defensive end hybrid for this defense. And more than that, I just think he could bring leadership and experience to this locker room, positional versatility. He could be kind of a mouthpiece for Dennis Allen, set the standard in that room on that defensive front, which could certainly use that. Who's the leader in that room? Montez Sweat's a good player. He's not really a rah-rah guy to me. DeMarcus Walker's kind of been that. He doesn't have the skins on the wall of a Cam Jordan. Like, you get Cam Jordan in here on a cheap 1-year deal, maybe like $5 million. I think the wealth of experience in winning and leadership that guy could bring is priceless. I really do. So keep an eye on that. We'll see, A, if he gets cut, B, if he decides not to retire, and C, if he's willing to play for another team at this point in his career. But he's a rock-solid just individual and stud that would enter that locker room. Okay, name a defensive free agent that Chicago should sign. Obviously, those are just guys with Dennis Allen ties and connections. We'll certainly be examining plenty more. I put out a full free agent targets video with other defensive free agents, so go check that out as well. Get a name in there in the comment section. Also, just 3 other names to mention here. A couple of defensive ends, Peyton Turner, Tano Passanio. Turner hasn't done much, but he's a free agent. Passanio's 30. He's a vet. He also has Ryan Poles ties. He was a Chiefs draft pick several years ago, and he's kind of been hit and miss year to year. Some years he's been a good rotation player. This past year he was terrible, so I'm not sure there's much left in the tank there. Paulson Adebo is pretty interesting. If you want to kind of just throw some competition at Tyreek Stevenson, he could be a name. I kind of think that competition's already in-house with Terrell Smith, but he was starting off this year excellent. Then he had an injury, so I do wonder what that price tag looks like. But if you want to bring in a DB who has some experience with Dennis Allen, Adebo could be just that. Okay, appreciate everybody for tuning in to Chicago Bears Now. Some defensive free agent targets to examine for the Bears and Dennis Allen. My name is Harrison Graham. Don't forget to subscribe on the way out. Standouts from the measurements today at the Senior Bowl. One really stood out to me. A few did, but I got to find this tweet to make sure I get this right.
Are you talking about Jalen Milroe?
Well, yeah, so Jalen Milroe, the Bears aren't going to draft a quarterback.
Why? Yeah.
Sub 9-inch hands, that is tiny. Kenny Pickett, Brock Purdy, 9-inch hands. They are considered small. Jalen's got less than 9 inches. This is the one. Tez Johnson, who some people have said maybe he could be your Jameson Williams guy, like Jameson Williams light in the third, fourth round, something like that. How about very light? 156 pounds. That is small. Now, he is electric. He is fast. It wouldn't shock me if he ran in the high 4.2s, but I don't know how many snaps a game you can play in the NFL calling it a $155. Like, I don't. Xavier Worthy's light at 165. That's 9 more pounds.
It is. To be honest, like, I just feel like over, you mentioned Xavier Worthy, Devonta Smith, there's these concerns, like, as he was coming out of college and everything. And again, these guys are bigger than Tez
It's
Johnson.
not as big of a concern as it was 15 years ago.
To be honest, like, I think for me personally, again, it depends on his test, look at his tape and everything. I don't mind taking, him 4th round or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's just
you see a guy like Cavante Turpin in
Yep.
Dallas become a good player. I think he's 152, so that's just light, man.
Now, again, Tank Dell, he's also suffered some injuries. He's known as a lighter guy. So there's both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
To me, like.
But if he's your number 3, like if you're not banking on him playing 90% of the snaps, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. If you view him, no, don't get me wrong. If you view him as, he's looking at to be your potential wide receiver 2 or, 3 if you're in 11 personnel a lot, then yeah, sure, okay, have the concern. But if he's just a guy you're filling out your roster with, or you just kind of look at him as he'll maybe fight for a starting spot, to me, like, the size doesn't, like, drastically make a difference for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.
Okay, I like it. B, any other running back you think could be a good fit other than Genty and Caleb? There's a lot. Maybe Scatterboot. He'd be one. I like other guys more. I don't think he's as explosive as Amarian Hampton and Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. I like Devin Neal out of Kansas a lot. I'm still an Ollie Gordon truther. I think Oklahoma State's season just got wonky.
In part due to
Judkins and Henderson out of Ohio State, I think are both studs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good backs, man.
There's a lot.
R.J. Harvey.
He
measured in sub 5'8" today, but he's 207, so he's thick.
Yeah. I'm going to look up this guy's name because I keep forgetting him. He's one of my favorite running back draft prospects. Kyle Monungai.
Is he the Rutgers guy?
Running back out of Rutgers. He runs Harrison. He might be the most violent runner in this draft.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at him.
To be honest, like, I've only done a little bit of research on him. He might be one of my favorite, like, sleepers.
Is he going to be a Sperry has Sperry psychos? Is he going to be a Cullen crush?
Maybe.
We could start Cullen crushes here
Maybe.
on. We could do We could do Cullen crushes live little mini segments here.
There we go.
Just do like a new 3 new guys each week.
Okay.
So
I'll have to get in my bag for that.
get to work on that.
We'll
All right.
trademark.
All right, depressed Bears fan. Flus probably had something to do with keeping Brisker on IR. Brisker basically said that him and Flus did not have a good relationship. The only problem I have with that is Flus wasn't here the last 5 weeks. I could buy that more if, like, a week or two after Flus was gone, Brisker returned. Now, you could argue and say, well, the season was over. The upside to bring him back at that point wasn't there. Okay, fair enough. But, Thomas Brown in Week 18 said he hasn't cleared the protocol. Even if – I know Brisker's been kind of – he was subtweeting Flus, doing all this stuff. But, if I'm Brisker and the team is saying I haven't cleared and I have, I'm making that known. Nope, I'm healthy. I can play this week. I just – regardless of the situation, that it's a concern. There's no way around it. Multiple concussions, missing that much time. Even if you want to say the last 5 or 6 games he could have returned, which we have no evidence of that. But let's just say that. Okay, he missed 6 weeks with a concussion? That's pretty concerning still. So, Tua, his hands fenced, which is what they call it when you have a brain injury and your hands kind of just tense up basically.
Yeah.
He missed a month.
Yep.
Brisker missed 12 games. So, I just something's off there. I don't know what it is. I love the player.
Yeah.
He's a great leader. I think they missed his emotional presence, but
yeah. And I mean, the thing with safety too is, going into this draft, I mean, based on everything I've seen, there's really two top guys. I mean, at different levels, obviously. Malachi Starks, who a lot of people I would say probably have him going first round,
he's
the
a stud.
safety out of Georgia.
Yep.
And then Watts from Notre Dame, is another really solid safety that could go
probably
day
early
two.
day 2, yeah.
Outside of that, I mean, it's kind of hit or miss at safety. So if you're the Bears and you're looking to replace Brisker or just have some insurance, you're probably going to look at free agency.
Yeah, I would like to hedge in free agency. Get I mentioned Honey Badger. Would he take on a role like that where he's not guaranteed to start, but maybe he gets some snaps, you give him some nickel reps, I'm not sure, but you can find guys like that. I mean, Jonathan Owens, he had been a starter before. I just don't think he played that well this year when he got to play. So, he's one of those guys where if you're starting safeties out a month, he can get by, but I think we saw over 12 games that other safety spot kind of exposed. Elijah Hicks played okay, but yeah, I think they're going to have to take a look at that position to maybe bring in someone with a little more value to hedge in case Brisker can't be a full-time starter anymore.
Yeah, agreed.
C. Cozy, how about the tight end out of Penn State? Cut Gerald Everett. I mean, Warren's going to go so high. I mean, could you take him at 10? I suppose. I think it's good. I think he's worthy of that. I just think you have bigger needs. Now, I will say this. After Kmet, you're going to need to add to tight end. I don't know what Ben Johnson has in mind. I think he'll look at more blocking tight ends because they like to run the football a lot with some extra tight ends. Like the way Detroit filled out their tight end room, it was like Laporta and then just blockers.
Yep.
So they might just look to do the same, like Kmet and then just blockers. We'll see what that looks like, but that is what I would guess. Maybe you get a guy late day 3 to be like your third guy and bring someone in free agency. Do you bring Mercedes back for one more year as a blocker? Maybe. I don't know if they'll do that, but I don't think they're going to add some high-level draft pick that is as good as Tyler Warren as a receiver. I think they're going to look at more blocking tight ends. But
Agreed.
All right. I think we're caught up. I think that's everybody. Thanks to everybody who tuned in here on a Monday. You guys are real ones. Plenty of content to come here on Chicago Bears Now. Appreciate Colin producing. Colin's Crushes coming soon, so stay tuned for that. And my name is Harrison Graham. Bear down. We'll see you next time.